Well, take a Bible, look over to the book of Proverbs, and while you're turning there, I want to mention a couple of things in way of announcements. In the foyer, we have a table set up with some books still from the ladies' conference, some of Brother Coral's material. And again, let me urge you to be readers, study, learn, have books to read. I would challenge you to have an equal amount of time reading and TV time, or reading and video game time, or reading and whatever you do time. But we need readers. We need to study. We need to fill our minds with good things. And again, we've talked about it a little bit, but with your young people, I wouldn't let my kid be reading, zombie books and vampire books. And I'm not against a little fantasy, but I would guard it. It's books are filled too often with immorality and vulgarity and lewd and inappropriate. And we've got hundreds and hundreds of books at our house, and some of them are just kid books, but we're careful and we do read through them and make sure that they're appropriate. Anyway, so but these books, there's kids books back there, but men, we ought to be readers. Match your ball game time with your reading time. Look, we need a group of educated Baptist men. And such a big thing. And then we need to account for tomorrow. If you're planning on coming tomorrow, and it's not going to be accurate because we have a lot of people who aren't out, they don't drive after dark. But if you're a senior, you say, what age is a senior? If you want to come eat with old people, you're a senior. I'm coming. I'm 58, so you can do it. If you're 57, we'll let you. My wife will probably be there. She's 45, 35. I don't know, whatever she is. But anyhow, so if you're planning on coming tomorrow, lunch 11:30, slip a hand up. Let me see, just real quick here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got about 10, 11 in here, and 12. Thank you, Ms. Trewin. You're not old enough to come, but we'll let you come. But all right. So good lunch tomorrow. And again, if you know somebody who's not here that might forget, we'll usually have 35 to 50 to these Thursday lunches with our seniors, and would enjoy having you along tomorrow. That would be a good thing. Looking at Proverbs chapter 5 with me tonight, and I'm going to jump through 5 and into 6 a little bit tonight. Now, as we go through Proverbs, we're going to see money, and we're going to see marriage, and we're going to see mouth and work. I don't know how to do an M for work, but I'm sure there's a synonym for work that's got an M. Misery. But especially if you're raising children, and there's a lot more like today's, a lot of other things. But look with me, let's just look at chapter 5. My son, attend to my wisdom, and bow thine ear to my understanding, that thou mayest regard discretion, and that thy lips may keep knowledge. And if I could just stop for a moment, because we're gonna hurry through some of this, but as parents, there comes a point when and again, everybody's got to make their own decision. You're the parent. I'm giving you principles. But there comes a point when you can offer things to somebody, but you can't demand. And when that point is, you're going to have to figure that out. For some of you, it's about a 2-year-old child, and you just make suggestions. But honestly, you get a kid, 14, 16, 18, 20 years old, it gets very difficult to insist. You can make an offer that they do it your way or they move out. And everybody's got to, if you want to walk through any of this with me, you're welcome to. I'm speaking generically to all of us. The principle there in verse 1 and verse 2, he says, it's your job, son, to attend to my wisdom. It's your job to bow down your ear to my understanding, so that you, verse 2, will regard discretion. And later we'll see where Solomon says to his son, my son, give me thine heart, and let thine eyes observe my ways. And to me, maybe the most valuable thing you can do in child rearing is win that kid's heart so they want to please you. And again, every child's different. Out of our 4, they are all different, so very different. And they handle things different. They respond differently. But if I were to take my children and just run through a very generic, again, they're all different, but here, when they're very small, I don't give liberty when they're little. I want liberty up there. And here, it's very strict and very demanding and very orderly and very loving. And when our children were little, if you haven't heard our child rearing CD cassettes, 8 tracks, whatever they are, if you have little ones, I encourage you to get them, but especially the beginner ones, because that child at this stage should be so used to kind words, soft words, warm embrace, affection, and a closeness to mom and dad, that is the bonding of the home. And I'm talking about 1 day old, 2 day old, 2 month old, little children should be so used to the closeness of mother and father, so that if during that 1 week, 1 month, 6 month old child, they do something that is not favorable, that a harsh word or a separation physically brings broken relationship. The best discipline is not physical pain, although I'm for pain. Pain is very effective. But the best discipline is separation. If you want to describe hell is separation from God and pain. And so when a child is little, if they're always used to closeness and warmth and affection, and they do something wrong and you scold them, and like for me, if a child did something wrong, and I'm talking about a week, a month, or 3 months, or 6 months, little ones, I'm going to speak harshly. Stop that! Well, they're not used to words that are harsh. Now, if you're in a home where there's yelling and cursing and anger and all going on, you just lost that part of child discipline. One of the reasons you want your home to be calm and warm and good music, good, calm, godly music, and no junk TV going on, is because that child should be in a world of absolute peace and warmth and affection. And then when it's, stop it, don't do that, they ought to go, they ought to panic. Never heard this before. That's exactly what you want. But if they're used to yelling and screaming and carrying on going all the time, then you lose that area of separation from your child. And so when they're real small, you need to discipline. Don't give 1 inch. Don't give anything. And then as they get a little older, if they're good, then you give them a little freedom. And if they're good, you give a little more freedom. But you keep that closeness to you. That's why you send a child to their room. If our child deserved whatever discipline they were going to get, it always began, now not when they're real little. When they're real little, it has to be instant. Yeah, if they go to touch something and I say no and they keep going, then I'll just flick the back of their hand with my finger, and it's that pain. They're not used to having pain, and they're not used to sharp words, and they, oh no, I can't touch that or the world will come to an end. Yeah, it will. You're going to get more than my finger flicking the back of your hand. And that kind of thing, you don't have to beat a child and kill them, but that insistence, so that as they get toddler age, you don't have to child-proof your home, you home-proof your child. And now it does take a mom who's on the spot, who's right there, and who's a hands-on, always. That's one of the. And I know we're in a culture where a lot of ladies have to work, but it is not good. It's definitely second best. I believe mom is the greatest child rearer that there is, and I think there needs to be a dad. But so you get the child up here a little bit older, and you know they're 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. And you can say, all right, go to your room, don't touch a toy, don't touch a book, sit in your bed, and don't move, don't even breathe. Well, now they're all by themselves, sitting in their room. There's separation. So in these little kid years, you're developing a relationship. If things go well, and every child is different, but as they get older, you should give them more freedom. Yeah, take your bike and go down to the park and play. And yes, you can go in the backyard and do what you want. You can whatever. And you start giving them more and more freedom. If they violate the freedom, instantly step back, not in age obviously, but in discipline. And the more obedient they are, the more liberty you give them. And my goal, and I start telling my kids this at 5, 6, 7 years old, I tell them, my goal is when you hit 15 or 16, that I can toss you the keys to the car and you can go somewhere without me. That's my goal for you. And unless you violate principles and rules, that's what you're going to get. But if you violate those rules, the Game Boy's gone. Game Boy, it shows how bad it is. That's ancient history. The Xbox is gone. And I saw a picture that says we need more tackle boxes and less Xboxes. But anyway, that's a good thing. But the Xbox is gone. The phone's gone. The iPad's gone. The tablet's gone. The computer's gone. The car keys are gone. Everything's gone. You know what you're doing? Now they might be 10, 12, 15, 17 years old. You're bringing it back here. Crunch time. The choke chain's back on. And they realize, you know what? When I violate the principles that earn me freedom, I lose the freedom. Isn't that what jail is? Jail is you violated the rules of a free society, we're putting you in jail. And that's why people should go to jail. Because there's got to be something happen when people violate the rules of a civilized people. And it is separation from those you love, separation from comfort, separation from convenience, and you're locked up somewhere. And that's just logical child rearing. And again, you get up here at this point, that's why mom has to back dad. And dad has got to back mom. If mom says, all right, then we're going to, whatever, dad can't correct her. And if dad says we're going to whatever, you can't, You're going to hold these 2 cinder blocks on your arms in the bottom of the pool for an hour. Hopefully you don't do that. But anyway, but you got to back each other. You need a team in leadership and authority. And so at some point you get here to chapter 5, verse 1, where you realize, you know what? I could beat this kid with a 2x4. It wouldn't even hurt him. And he's a grown man, he may be 16, 18, 20, whatever, but he's an adult. And there comes a time, and in my mind, the sooner the better, that I start treating my children as adults. I want them responsible. I want them accountable to an authority bigger than getting banished to their room. I want them accountable to culture and to society. And this is what the rules of school are. And we keep the rules in our school as best as we can. And if somebody's not going to, we're going to throw fits and we're going to cause trouble and people are going to be mad at us. And we've lost more members from our church over our school than over anything in 33 years. But if we're going to have a school, if we're going to have rules, we're going to enforce them. If we're going to have a school, we're going to have rules. If we're not going to enforce the rules, we're not going to have a school. And so Solomon says, son, listen, but understand the burden is on the child. And that's why you don't see me coming to you as church members saying, how come you're not? And why don't you? I don't do that. Some of you could probably, you might wonder, how come nobody asked me to help? How come you're not asking to help? I don't go pigeonholing people, saying, here, you need that. Once in a while I'll say to people, just so you know, I told a couple of people this week, I know 2 men at least, in regard to they and their spouse, they said, there's not anything here you can't do. You want to do something, tell me. Pick the job. I trust you. If you don't want to, that's fine. But just so you understand, there's a lot to do around here. You could be the greeter at the parking lot for car wash. And you could be the supervisor so kids don't drop their sponges on the asphalt and then pick them back up and wash the car with them. We need adults doing that. So he says, I want you, please. But there comes a point when you got to leave it up to them. I think somewhere that verse in Revelation applies to child rearing and at least adult, but children for sure, teens maybe, but adult children, let him that is ignorant be ignorant still. Verse 3, now what's he talking about specifically? For the lips of a strange woman drop as in honeycomb. and her mouth is smooth in oil. Now he's going through a series of lessons on the danger of an inappropriate woman here. And there's this forward lady who's pushing herself, and he says in verse 4, her feet go down to death, her steps take hold on hell. And he says, you need to be careful, be careful, be careful. And of course, Solomon didn't take his own advice, and he messed the whole world up with his lack of self-control around females. But understand, he's warning. And you dads, I believe we as the man of the house have a responsibility to train our children. If I could, again, just go back a little bit. When my kids are little, I want them to know they're loved. I want a relationship. I mean, my kids, little kids, still in diapers, that little, were on the back of a bicycle, bicycling with me all over town. We'd go to the park, I'd put them on the swings, I'd slide them down the slides, and my wife did not have to come along and supervise me. Did the kids ever fall? Oh yeah, I've crashed my kids on bikes. Look, that's just life. That's what men do. It's not a big deal. Kids live through that stuff. But I remember Esther riding her bike in front of me, and I turned, and my front wheel hit her back wheel and crashed her down. And anyway, I think it was her. It might have been Hannah. Was that you? It was you. Yeah, she hates me still. That's life, okay? But and by the way, I don't want to race off kids. I want my boys to be tough. I want them to roughhouse, and I mean, we'd bounce in the bed till they hit the ceiling. We'd throw rocks. We'd shoot slingshots and shoot BB guns. And I'm talking about preschool, little kids. If a kid, by the time a kid's as tall as a BB gun, he should have one. That's a Goddard rule of thumb. And you may not feel that way. God bless you. Let them throw something, break something, shoot something. Don't raise sissy boys. If your boy'd rather hug his teddy bear than shoot a slingshot, you got work to do, men. Okay? We got enough soft men in this world. We don't need any more soft men. No more cutesy little boys. I've sat in the living room doing sit-ups with the boys. And how many sit-ups can you do? And I'm talking about 17. I couldn't do that with a 17-year-old. I can do it with a 7-year-old because then I can compete. But raise a man. Throw a ball, shoot a gun, work in the yard, dig up sprinkler lines. You need sprinklers in your yard just to teach your boy how to fix sprinklers. Not because you care about the grass. I don't care about the grass. I care about the kid. Teach him to fix a light and change a spring in the garage door, whatever, brakes in the car, air up the kid. By the time our boys, for sure, I'm proud of the girl, but by the time our boys were 7, 8 years old, they could detail the inside of a car better than the car wash. Now, it takes a lot of time sitting out there telling them how to do it. But don't raise boys who just sit in their room. Oh, life is so nice and calm. No, life's not calm. Life's a pain. We're going to inflict some on you so you understand life's hard. Slide them down the slide. Take them up to that 30-foot slide that goes around and around while they scream all the way. Now, don't be mean to your kids, but raise them tough. And if you're not sure what to do, take them over to Brett and Jen's house and let your boys hang around their boys. They'll toughen them up. Poor Jen. Jen and Brooklyn are the soft people. Well, Brooklyn is. But that's our job, man. This is a dad-son thing we're looking at here. And there ought to be a dad investing and trying, and again, we're not going to be perfect at it, but I want you to notice next. So first of all, the burden is on the child. Yes, dads and moms, we should teach, and yes, but at some point, we need to exchange responsibility. I cannot force you. Now I need to commit this to you. You have to make a decision. Secondly, I want to look at this matter of separation. Look with me there, and I have to get where I can see again here. Look at Verse 3, for the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, her mouth is smooth in oil, her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Look at verse 6, lest thou shouldst ponder the path of life. He's warning him, don't ponder. Don't think. Don't get thinking about that girl. Because as he thinketh in his heart, so is he says later in Proverbs 23. And Jesus said in Matthew, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And out of the heart proceeds murders and adulteries and fornications and all those things. And that's why pornography is so bad, and that's why inappropriate movies and TV is so bad, because those things put visions in the mind, especially in the mind of a young person with a very clean and uncharted slate, and all this stuff's coming in, and he says, don't ponder, don't think about it. Now he's talking about a dad and urging a child, please, please, please listen to me. So when people think I'm a freak in the way I preach, but I don't preach don't do bad. I preach don't think about bad. And this is why. Isn't that right, what pondering is? We should not just be good, we should think good. Psalm 19:14, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. We have got thinking problems in America. And a mom, I don't remember who it is, but some years ago a mom said to me about something. She said, where do boys get this? You know, she's wondering if it was from the school, the youth department. I said, they could get it all by themselves. You lock a kid up in a jail cell and he'll be corrupt just breathing. Guys are bad, all right? Everybody understand that? You girls, you don't understand it. Guys are bad, all right? Say it. Guys are? Yes, they are. They are, guarantee you. And every man in here knows it. And there's some moms who don't believe it, but they are, trust me. You've got to fight to keep your mind clean, and don't ponder the path. Don't ponder her ways. They're dangerous. They're movable. Then look down at verse 8. Remove thy way, what? Far from her, and come not nigh the door of her house. Now understand this. You see in verse 6 and in verse 8, you see the basis of biblical separation. Don't go near it, and don't think about it. And we're being told, well, you know what, they're not doing anything wrong. If they're thinking wrong, it's wrong. You know, if I told my child to go do something and they did this while they're going to obey, they're dead. Just dead. Amen. Just call the mortuary to pick up the cadaver. If I told a child standing here, go to the piano, and they dead, they won't get to the piano. Unless I picked them up and threw them there, and I don't do that. Because the heart is the root of things. What's the great commandment? To love God with all your heart. The order of mind, soul, strength is reversed from gospel to gospel, but always the heart is first. Always. And obedience is obedience that's immediate with the right heart attitude. Delayed obedience is disobedience. Obedience with the wrong attitude is disobedience. And so he's begging this young man, don't think that way, and remove your way far from her. And that's why we have rules. That's why we have rules. Don't ride alone in a car with someone you're not married to. And we have rules in our youth department. Don't go off alone as a couple. And obviously, guys and girls are going to like each other. And of course, my rules, my suggestion is don't have a relationship till you're in college. Because sure enough, Kid A is going to go to this place to college or whatever, and because Kid B likes Kid A, they're going to want to go there, and they won't consider their pastor's will, their parents' will, or God's will. And so I didn't want my kids in a relationship in high school. Get to college and date. Get to college and find somebody and marry them. But don't do it until you know what God's. I've got a list of things: your master, your ministry, your mate, in that order. Make sure Jesus is first. Get that settled in your life. Then, after you get that settled, then find out your ministry. What does God want me to do with my life? And then find a spouse who will go with you into that thing. And there's some differences for the girl and the boy, but this is not a lesson on that. And if they're and by the way, I teach this in my junior, senior seminar. Every junior, every senior gets this stuff. So he says, this thing is separation. Be careful, be careful, be careful. It does matter. What we look at, what we read, it matters what we ponder, and it is vitally, vitally important. And then, of course, look at verse 9. And verse 9, 10, 11, he's warning the judgment on sin, lest thou give thine honor to others, thy years unto the cruel. What do you lose in those verses? You lose your honor, you lose your years. Look at verse 10. Lest strangers be filled with thy what? So you can lose your honor, your years, and your wealth. And what else in verse 10? Your labors, be in the house of a stranger. You can lose your honor, you can lose your years, you can lose your wealth, you can lose your labor. What a horrible tragedy. And how many men in the ministry especially have lost everything over an illicit relationship. What a tragic, tragic thing. And I don't have a problem warning young people on sin. You come to our teen camp, we preach strong, we preach hard. We've never lost we've always had a bunch of teenagers in our church, and we don't give on anything, and we yell and holler and scream. I'm meaner at camp than I ever am at home because teenagers don't tithe very much. But man, it is so very vital. Look at verse 12 and 13. The dangers of not following the leader. And again, this is a dad warning a child, and God saw fit to record these words. Lest, he says in verse 11, and thou mourn at the last when thy flesh and thy body are consumed. And it's again, at the last. Young people that are tonight, listen, you can get away with wrong for a while, but at the last it will catch up to you. And by the way, good will catch up to you at the last. Also, verse 12, and say, how have I hated instruction, and my heart despised reproof. This morning, a guy came in to see me. We talked a little bit. Nice guy, saved, and wanting to get into church, and we talked a little bit. And he said this very sad phrase, every time I get out of jail, I'm determined to start going to church, and I don't do it. Good intentions, but at the last, and there you have in that verse 12, and say, how have I hated instruction? Why didn't I catch this? I've had adults come to me down the road and say, what was I thinking back there? How come I didn't catch that? And could I tell you, young people, you're not bad, you're not stupid, you're inexperienced. Trust us. Don't hate instruction. Don't hate reproof. Look at that next verse, verse 13. And have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined mine ear to them that instruct me. Remember back in verse 1, he said, listen, pay attention, hang on here to every single word, because at the last, you're going to look back and say, what was I thinking? Well, you weren't thinking very clear. You're young. And sometimes, like in Solomon, you're not young, you're stupid. Sometimes we just do stupid things. But what a danger. One last verse here in chapter 5. Look at verse 14. I was almost in all evil in the midst of the congregation and assembly. Do not think because you're in church you're safe. Because every wrong you can do while attending church. You're going to do right because you go out and you determine to do right. And it'll start with the pondering and with the separation and all that. The end of the chapter, again, more about moral purity and about keeping your marriage right. Quickly, let me wrap up with chapter 6, these first few verses. Most of us, look down if you would to verse 6. Most of our children have memorized Proverbs 6:6. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. And what do we teach about that verse? That everybody should do what? Work. We all teach about work, right? You know what that verse has to do with? Nothing to do with work. Look at verse 1. My son, if thou be surety for thy friend, that's co-signing. If thou hast stricken thy hand with a stranger, and that might be you making an agreement to borrow. Verse 2, you're snared, thou art snared with the words of thy mouth, thou art taken with the words of thy mouth. Verse 1 and verse 2 are talking about economic or financial commitments borrowing, co-signing economic contracts where you're bound to a situation with somebody you don't even know. Verse 3, here's the warning. Do this now, my son, and deliver thyself when thou art come to the hand of thy friend. Go, humble thyself, make sure thy friend. Beg, plead, get out of that contract. Get out of that economic commitment and be very careful. Verse 4, give not sleep to thine eyes, nor slumber thine eyelids. You cannot get fixed financially too soon. Now, that you own a mortgage, yes, work your way out of your mortgage. You're making a car payment, fine, but if we could draw lines and we're all different. But let me just give you some things about finance. There is unsecured, unwise, imprudent debt. You buy all your food and clothing on credit cards, and then you pay off the minimum each month. That's really not a good idea. And this is just speaking of debt. A car, normally your car is not worth what you owe on it. Is that a general pretty good rule? I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions. Some of you are pretty sharp. I know I've never driven off a car lot thinking I got a deal. Most of the time I felt like I had a crown of thorns and nails in my hands. I'm not a good barterer. I'm horrible. It's just, all right, it's time to be crucified. I'm going to buy a car. It's horrible. And then there are things you can do in your business loans on property, on buildings, signing leases because you need to expand your business, or you buy a house, and these are secured with some property or something tangible. You can get it back. And every one of these is different, and you've got to look at them. I just say this. Don't do this. Now, if you've got so much character, you can buy your stuff on your credit card. You never miss paying off the end of the month. And so you get free airlines and you get free tickets to Disneyland or whatever. God bless you, you freak. But most of us, we can't do this. We just got to stay away from this. The car loans, again, if you're driving a long ways, you need a decent car. But I'm going to be blunt here. Don't get into a car payment so your kid can drive to school. Buy them a bicycle. There's no one that attends our school that lives so far they could not bicycle to school. I mean, how many of us walked uphill in the snow both ways? To and from school, right? In Hawaii. I bicycled to school. Nobody ever picked me up and gave me a ride. My parents left at 6 or 6:30 every morning, and it was our job to get us together and get on the bike and ride our bike to school. Anyway, he said, well, these are bad days. Well, toughen your kid up. Buy him a gun. Teach him karate and get him nunchucks or something. But I would guard about, and again, most of you are smarter than me at this, but you know what? The big word there is, are you bound, or can you get free whenever you want? And if you can turn that thing into cash and walk away from it, fine. But you don't want to you lose your car, you lose your job, or something goes wrong financially, and then you're bound to these people. That's a very dangerous thing. And again, I'm not against the car payment. A lot of you are smarter than me. Same with how everybody ought to try to be debt free. If you're going to buy a home, beg God and plead with God and save money and get a down payment and on and on. Most of us are not going to save enough money to buy a house cash. There's a few people here that are very together, and I'm not one of them. But the whole first few verses here are talking about keep yourself financially free. And if you are in debt, work at getting out of debt. Don't stop tithing to get out of debt. That is a way to be cursed. But work at this thing and work at it. And Brother Ron and I would be happy to help you with figuring out some plans to do that. But look at verse 5. Deliver thyself as the roe from the hand of the hunter. It's as if you are captured. Debt captures you. And then we come into verse 6. Go to the ant, thou sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide or overseer or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer, gathereth her food in the harvest. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? Quit being lazy and take care of your commitments and fight to get things right. Do whatever it takes to get it right and guard it. And again, just being blunt. If the money's a mess when you're handling it, give it to your spouse. If the money's a mess when your spouse is handling it, do it together. If it's still a mess, go get help. You say, oh, that'd be very embarrassing. Not as embarrassing as being homeless at 50. I'll just be honest. We have had people, reputable, together people in our church who came to our home every payday, and we laid out the envelopes and took their check that was cashed and put cash in each envelope. This one was marked gas, and this one was marked soda because they were addicted. And this one was marked rent. And we kept the envelopes. You say, would you do that? I don't know if I do that anymore. But somebody do that for you. Find somebody very together and go to them and just say, help me. I'm a mess. Help us. And I have no, look, I'm the head of the house, and if I need to, I'll go to my wife and say, take care of this. I'm in charge. So I'm the boss, and she's more together than me. There's nothing wrong with that. Better to let your wife, and now if the wife says, see, the pastor said I should take care of this. Don't you do that. I did not say that. But, and don't, this whole passage, how long are you going to let this go? How long are you going to let these things pile up? How many bills can you get piled up in the drawer? They don't go away. It's not a magic drawer. I wish we had a magic drawer. Look at verse 10. Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands is sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that traveleth, and thy want as an armed man. Here's a simple principle, keep yourself free. The words in there, snared, taken, hunted, and poverty. Let's guard this thing of our money. And again, Abraham, great man, found himself in great financial pressure. Paul said, I know how to abound, I know how to abase. Good people doing right. Sometimes economy and job and the world goes crazy and things go wrong. It's real, it does happen, but it ought to be passion in our heart to fix this thing. And isn't it great that we are passionately together getting this thing fixed at our church? Now, by the way, I'm not against mortgage at church, or if we owe $300,000 in this property, Brother Ron, where are you? He's out working today. I don't know we get an audit and we get appraised and all. We're worth $3, $4, $5 million here. That's not a problem. If we want to pay off that $300,000, we could give them the football field. That's not a dangerous mortgage we're in here at this place. I've got a friend whose church is much, much smaller than us, probably running 300, and he's got a $5 million loan. That's scary. That's really scary. He told me, he said, with the economy in California and jobs leaving, he said this year, 2000, I think it was 2000, last December, he told me, he said in 2015, I had 25 families move for better jobs out of state. And he's got a $5 million mortgage. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to cry. And then I'm going to go home and kiss my building and our mortgage and all that stuff. We're blessed. We're very blessed. Let's pray. Father, help us tonight and give us wisdom. Every home's different, especially in the area of children and money, these very delicate issues. But I pray you'd help us to find your leading for each of our families. Guide us, and may we improve. Many of us have walked imprudently. We've made choices that we didn't think we would have made, and somehow we got in this. And so help us with our kids, help us with our money, help us with our ministry. And Lord, maybe most of all, while we're trying to fix things, and maybe if we can't even get it fixed, may we be faithful servants of the King of Kings. If I can't solve an earthly problem, I can still lead a soul to Christ. I can still teach a Sunday school class. I could drive a bus. I could make an impact for eternity. So help us, please, and bless our families, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, God bless you. If you have a senior going with me next